Okay, so now we're going to officially dive into the content and really talk to you guys about what self care is and how you can actually achieve it. So, a little bit of a background just because there's a couple new faces within the group. My name's Becky, and I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I am the very proud founder of IOME. I love my job. I really do love getting to do this and having connections like you guys. I developed the company about it's September of 2018. So we're a little over 2 years old now. And we are just figuring out what's working. We figured out what doesn't work, right? That's part of the learning curves. And I am so excited about this new kind of the rebranding. It's not necessarily rebranding, but the new and improved IOME, which is this community. So really quickly, I wanted to go over what that looks like because my hope is that every single month, IOME can solve this problem for you guys, that we are going to be able to give you really good, tangible tools, great ideas, and resources to implement your self-care every month. And I'll be honest and transparent up front that every month there may be something that doesn't apply to you at all, or like it would be the opposite of self-care, right? It would just not be good for you. You wouldn't want it at all. That's okay, but because the next month we're going to have something great that will be really good for you. So be patient with that. But the whole point of this is to figure out what works for you and each of us individually. And sometimes you have to find out what doesn't work in order to know what does work, right? And so quickly, you guys have access to what's called the IOME community that's real bright. I don't know if you can see it. It's on your phone. It's also on your on the computer too, on the browser. And each and every month, we get to have access to good quality self-care tips and an action plan for your mind, your body, and your soul. And so if you guys have any questions about that, all of you are community members and get access to it. So just let us know if you have any questions whatsoever about any of the how-tos and how to really truly take advantage of your community membership, because we've put a lot of thought and prayer and work into it, and I want to make sure that it's beneficial for you guys. Also, I want to hold you accountable to your self-care, and so because you're on right now, you all are watching live, you can actually get extra entries, and at the end of every month, those that completed the mind, the body, and the soul, and even the give back portion will get entered to win some free coffee, because in my world, coffee is self-care. So if you don't like coffee, then we would talk and figure out what works for you. um, so anyways, the whole point of that is that you can go in, and after tonight, you watch the video, you can jump into the mind part of the course, and there's a little bit, there's like a little check mark that you can actually click complete. Doesn't that feel good? Like, I done checked it off my list this month. I am good to go. Like that. Maybe it's just me that likes to check things off lists, but it feels pretty good. Okay, so that's kind of just an overview. This is the mind topic. So every month, second Monday of the month, we get to be together and we're going to talk something mental health. You may be hearing from Michelle and Steve and some of our other trained supporters, and I may be sharing some other topics as well. That way you guys can get a lot of great things coming at you, because again, maybe, I don't know, maybe Steve, actually, we just got an idea. Maybe Steve can talk about how self-care can be really incorporated for men in particular. So that could be a fun topic we talk about later. Steve, bookmark that. Okay. So that's what we're doing every month. Okay. And then we are going to just dive right into the content of what is self-care and how in the heck can we actually achieve this whole thing. So before we dive much further, I think it's really important to recognize the steps towards your self-care, right? And I'm going to define it here in a little while, because I think it's even more important to recognize these first beginning steps. And then we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to actually then dive into the worksheet I created for you guys tonight too, and then we'll leave it open for a few minutes of conversations, and I hope to be able to keep us on time. So I think the first and foremost step to self-care is self-awareness, because without knowing yourself, you won't know how to take care of yourself, right? And so it's going to be like, that's obviously a big part of what we can offer within IOME, is help you to understand who you are and what you need, right? And so there's a lot of cool assessments out there that can be supportive of this. My hope is that today at the end we're going to have a conversation. You're going to have a little deeper knowledge of what it is that you need, who you are. There's the Enneagram, there's the love languages, there's the DISC assessment. There's so many cool tools out there that you can actually utilize to help support you. One of the top tier of what IOME does is we actually do that Enneagram coaching. And so we would really dive in deep if you were considering, or if any of you are in that membership, then that's where we dive deep to understand what is it that you need. Because again, like we said in the very beginning, I may need something completely different than you and vice versa. And we need to respect that. We really need to honor that. And then another step into it too is most of us are connected somehow, some way to other people, right? Whether that's the people we live with, our partners, our spouses, our kids, the people that we work with, the people that we surround ourselves with at church or in the community, whatever that looks like. That's going to be important for us to know too and accept, is that maybe my husband doesn't have the same needs as I do and vice versa. And so that way I can be sure that I respect what he needs, and he can respect what I need too, and we can make time for that. So that's another piece of this, is to be able to better ourselves first and foremost, of course, but then also turn around and better our loved ones, right? And so there are a lot of warning signs that may indicate we're not taking care of ourselves, right? So, again, part of that self awareness is recognizing, again, maybe what's not working. So, I want to break down something really quickly because I think it's important for us to understand that we have symptoms of not taking care of ourselves. Okay. There's the physical symptoms, there's the emotional symptoms, and then there's the behavioral symptoms. And so, just for an example, most of these are pretty self explanatory, but for physical examples of not taking care of ourselves, lack of self care, it could be that we can feel physically sick, right? Quick story, I won't go into more detail, but was so stressed out at one point in my several years ago. I broke out in full body hives. I mean, no reason for this whatsoever. I didn't eat anything different. I didn't change laundry detergent, nothing like that. And the doctor chalked it up as just stress. Clearly that was lack of self-care, right? So those kinds of physical responses and symptoms can be present. The fatigue, the hard shortness of breath, hard to breathe, your heart can be pounding. So many of these things can be leading to that physical symptom of lack of self-care. Then there's the emotional side too. We can have anxiety, we can be really irritable, can experience that emotional fatigue. We can be very distracted. We can even have panic attacks, um, forgetfulness. Those are some of those emotional side effects of lack of self care. And then there's the behavioral ones. So that could be, avoidance. It could be lashing out at other people, lashing out at people that you love. It could even be self-medicating, right? If we're turning to overeating or turning to alcohol or drugs, right? Or any other substance or anything like that. Or honestly, over medicating by self-medicating by binge watching Netflix all day. I mean, that's part of it, right? So those can be some of those behavioral symptoms that we have from a lack of self-care. And so I want to ask each of you, and not that you have to answer it out loud, but think about it or comment it in the chat box. But you've heard the saying, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. I do believe that. The quote that we really founded IOME on is that you deserve the best because your loved ones deserve the best of you, not what's left of you. Right? I've been there. I've seen the detriment of what was happening when I was just giving my family the rest of me, and it was sad. It wasn't okay, right? They were just getting the leftovers. They were getting those behavioral symptoms, those negative emotional symptoms, right? The lashing out, the irritability. They were getting those kinds of things. That's not what I want to be able to give to my kids. So I just want you all to kind of reflect on this as we move forward in this conversation of, is your cup empty? right? You can't pour from an empty cup. Is your cup empty? Is your cup half full? Is your cup broken? Is your cup, right? Is your loved ones, are your loved ones getting the rest of you and not the best of you? So kind of, take a moment and step outside of that. I like one of my clients once told me, I thought it was so good to zoom out, like zoom out of your life and look down and look in and just kind of take a little view, right? Like a drone would look in on your house and your life and kind of look at your life and ask yourself honestly, are people getting the what's left of you instead of the best of you? And I think that's a really good indicator of lack of self-care, of needing to make change, of being in a place in your season of life to be able to say, okay, let's do this. I think I'm there. I think I'm ready. Okay, so that's obviously the first piece is you have to be aware enough about who you are and recognize when people are getting the rest of you, right? So that way you can see those symptoms that you're experiencing. And that's part of that worksheet we're going to be talking about here in a second too. Okay, so then the next piece is to define self-care. Okay. The reason I saved it till now, because we need to recognize the importance of what it's doing to us to be able to really recognize the definition of it. So there's a big, significant difference between self care and self indulgence. Most people, right? Maybe I shouldn't say most people, but there's a stigma behind self care. It's well, I don't have time to go to a spa all day. I don't have that money. I don't like to take baths and drink wine. I don't know. That's the first thing I think of before I really dove into this topic, right? And sometimes that's totally fine, but that's really not what we're talking about. We're talking about good quality self care. So it often gets mixed up with and replaced by self-indulgence. And so by definition, self-indulgence is characterized by doing or tending to do exactly what one wants, especially when this involves pleasure. It's basically lacking control, right? And then the definition of self-care is the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness. I love that definition, taking an active role in protecting your own well-being and happiness, right? So IOME likes to take it a little bit further. So then that definition of self-indulgence, right? The tending to do exactly what one wants. This is going to be the quick fix, right? The instant pleasure. It's going to be doing the easy thing in the moment because it feels good. And it's that escapism or avoidance or indulgence, right? And so whatever that looks like, that could be a lot of different things. And if you guys are vulnerable and willing, I mean, I could go on and on. It could be scrolling mindlessly on social media for hours, right? It could be binge watching the whole season of, we're rewatching Nashville. It's one of my favorite shows. But if I sat down and rewatched the whole season in one sitting, that would be indulgence, right? It would be drinking the entire bottle of wine in one evening by yourself versus just enjoying one glass of wine. Does that make sense? So it's going to be overindulging. It feels good in the moment, right? It's that quick fix, but it's the thing that's going to leave you feeling drained in the long run. You're probably going to feel physically ill and you're going to be drained emotionally, physically, behaviorally, probably all of the above. It's not adding any value to you. And then there's the good quality definition of self-care. So those are going to be the things, like I said, it's taking that active role in protecting your own well-being. So it's going to be the uncomfortable thing, right? The more challenging, the more difficult thing. It's going to be the thing that's more uncomfortable, but the thing that's going to add so much more value to you in the long run. So that would be waking up an hour early before your alarm goes off to be able to get your exercise in, or to be able to journal or meditate or pray or whatever that looks like for you. It would be going to bed early, like turning the TV off, right? Turning your phone off an hour before bedtime and not even being engaged in it. It would be choosing that healthy, nutritious meal versus the fast food quick fix, right? listening to an uplifting podcast instead of just zoning out on the news or some reality TV show. Okay, so all of those things are going to be a little bit more challenging in the moment, but man, they're going to add so much more value to you in the long run. Does that make sense, guys? Do you have any questions about that difference between self-care and self-indulgence? And to kind of, I think it was Julie that talked about like that balance piece. Now, I give you all the permission to go and indulge, right? To take a day and binge watch if you need to, because you've just had a week, right? That is totally okay. I absolutely, I will, some days I will sit down and drink that bottle of wine. Don't judge me, but that may happen. Okay. No problem. As long as my quality self-care is outweighing that self-indulgence, right? And as long as it's nothing too extreme. I mean, I think we would know the difference. But right, we want to make sure that that quality self-care is outweighing the self-indulgence. And so go and enjoy the late night and binge watch the show, but then the next day maybe go make sure you go on that walk or that run or do the extra thing to make up for that to be able to energize yourself. Okay? Okay. Any thoughts or questions on that? Okay. So this is kind of where I wanted to dive into the worksheet because I want to be able to take some time to have conversation because you guys were talking about really wanting to know people's ideas. So what I did is I shared this in, and I actually just recently shared it because I made some tweaks because I'm that last minute girl that's like, oh, I think I like this better. So I made some tweaks to the worksheet. It is in your community. Okay. It is in your community portal there. And this is what it looks like. Okay. Can everybody see my screen? Maybe a thumbs up if you are good to go. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. So this is what I'm calling the self-care worksheet, your action plan. So the idea behind this is I want you to partner with a loved one. Okay. It could be your spouse. It could be a sibling. It could be your best friend. It could be a parent, a kid, whoever it is, but partner up with somebody that you can trust and that you feel really safe with. So it would be somebody that is a judge-free zone, somebody that you could rely on, and that somebody would be holding you accountable in a really healthy way. If you don't have that, that's okay. Please reach out to us. That's what we're here for. Our trained supporters, that's what our jobs are to keep you accountable to your self-care. So we'd be happy to as well. But this way you can go and bless someone else with their accountability for their own self-care too. So I want to just explain this briefly, and then I'd love to have an open dialogue with you guys and talk more about it. So this is going to be a commitment, okay, between you and whoever your partner is. So me and my husband did this, okay? Then you're going to go down, and this is where you're going to spend some time and reflect. You're going to write down your warning signs that indicate you are not taking care of yourself. So just like we talked about before, right? We have those physical symptoms, those behavioral, those emotional symptoms of lack of self-care. So start writing down what those look like. I'll share some of mine just for an example, and then we'll stop the recording and do a deep dive with you guys. Semi deep dive. So some of mine are irritability. That's my first one. The second I start getting short tempered with my kiddos is like, okay, when's the last time I checked out? When's the last time I took care of myself? I get overthinking. I just get in this constant, overwhelming thought process where my anxiety is heightened. I get into that quitting mentality. Like I'm just going to quit. I don't want to do it. It's not even worth it. Right. So those are some of my warning signs that I'm like, oh, okay, that's, yep. Gotta do something about that. Okay. So then the next question, so list those out. And if you need more space, print out 2 sheets. I get it. Is to really be honest with yourself, because this isn't going to go anywhere if you're not truly honest, right? Is to ask yourself, how do those things that you just listed truly impact your overall wellness and success? And how, like, part of that question is, how is that impacting your loved ones, right? And so for me, it's impacting my kids wildly, right? If I come home and short tempered and don't want to get on the floor and play with them, I've got the littles, right? A 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. If I don't want to sit down and read that book with Briar because I'm at my wit's end, right? That's my warning sign. That's impacting her in a big way, right? Then I'm not giving her that love and attention that she very much needs at this age, at any age, these kids need, right? My relationship with my husband is impacted almost immediately. If I'm coming home and I'm just not engaged in conversation, I'm in this quitting mentality, then our quality relationship is not so quality, right? Not so much quality. And then for me, my physical and mental health like just crashes, right? And then I get into again that all or nothing. And then I'm going to be making that unhealthy physical choices, right? Then I'm going to be turning to that self medicating piece, or I'm going to be turning to um, just zoning out of complete avoidance. So those things are impacting my physical health, right? My overall confidence, because if I'm not eating healthy and exercising, then I feel less confident. So again, really, really take that question seriously and just really answer it honestly, if you will. Okay. And then this section here is where we're going to dialogue more, but self-care skills to implement and for your mind, your body, and your soul. So then the idea is that you're going to have these warning signs, right? And then you're going to recognize how much these warning signs are affecting your loved ones and your overall wellness. And then it's like, okay, got to get to action. Then you're going to be able to have this to-do list of like, okay, today I'm going to do this. And so some of them we're going to talk more, but some of them for me is to journal and to have some quiet prayer time. Like my morning time is really incredible and essential for me. So I usually wake up at least 30 to an hour early before the kids are awake. I sit and have my cup of coffee in silence. And I usually do like a little daily devotional or journaling. And whew, it's good for me. Okay. Eating healthy, choosing healthy and more nutritious things is a big. It's not like I do it all the time. It's something I want to do all the time. It's good for me. So that's something that I'm trying to do better. Being able to clock out, like actually turn things off, turn the electronics off. Do not get the alerts on my phone. Shut the computer down. That's really important for my mental health, right? Um, and then some of that good for the soul part is to go outside, to be outside on those nice days. We have horses out here, so being able to have an opportunity to go play with the horses. And this may sound so bizarre, right? But like going out and cleaning the horse pens, for whatever reason, that is so good for my soul. Like I just love it. Yeah. Some people may think I'm crazy, right? But that works for me. Going on date nights with my husband and making that a regular thing, a non-negotiable thing, that's important for our self-care, for my self-care, for our together care. So I have these like quick bullet points, like action plan that I can implement right away. And then lastly, why do we want to do this, right? And this is where I would love for you guys to, again, have that quality conversation with the partner, with whoever the loved one is that you're talking to, and asking yourself, why? Why is it important to do this? And obviously, I think my biggest reason is the ripple effect, right? If I start to not take care of myself and I start to have some of those negative emotions and negative behaviors, then it just ripple effects to the rest of my family, to my career, to the people that I, care about. It just negative ripple effect, right? The reason I want to take care of myself is the same reason, because then it has that positive ripple effect. Because then when I start to take care of myself, I'm setting the example for my girls to continue to take care of themselves. And then I'm really, I don't know if it's good or bad at this, whatever it is. But if I start to exercise, then I automatically start to eat healthier. And then I automatically start to exercise more. And then I automatically, so it's just that, again, that positive ripple effect for me. That's why, like, might as well do it, because I would much rather go in a positive direction and then versus that negative direction. So that's really the idea behind this worksheet here is you're going to create this action plan with your partner, whoever it is. Okay. And then your partner will come over here and you'll print it and cut it out. So it's himself or herself filling it out, and he or she is going to write it down. So I have my husband's, he did it for me, which is very kind. And he wrote them down, and it's like, oh, wow. And some of them, I mean, here I am, you know, I didn't even realize some of these for him. So it's really important for me to recognize, like, okay, this is a warning sign for him. So then I can really become familiar with his side. He becomes familiar with my side. So if I start to see that he's getting like bored, that's one of his warning signs, then I can say, hey, I see that, and I can point at the sheet and I can say, hey, I think you're feeling bored. It seems like you're feeling bored. Is that right? And then I think that's a warning sign. What do you need to go do? Right. So I can hold him accountable and I can support him in that just as if he will for me, because he knows the second I start to get irritable, he's like, okay, what do you need? Do you need to go for a run? I got the girls, you go do your thing. Um, so do you see how that can really like just be a beautiful connection and conversation with your partner? That's really what this is about, is again, creating that community and support systems and really holding each other accountable in that. Okay. That is the worksheet. I am going to stop the screen share for now, and I'm probably going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then I'd love for us to have a more in-depth conversation, okay? Those that were watching the recording afterwards, please reach out to me if you have any questions or clarifying anything that needs to be clarified.